everyone. Welcome to the Zone to Speak podcast. I'm your host, Juliana. Before the episode, I have got to share one of my absolute favorite ride essentials, the Psych Plus Smart Pump. This little thing goes everywhere with me. It's compact, powerful, and honestly a game changer on the bike. I love using it mid-ride when switching between terrains. I can drop the pressure for gravel and then pump it back up when I hit the road. Super easy, super fast. And of course, it's a total lifesaver in case of a flat or any loss of air. No stress, no hand pumping. Just press the button and go. You can grab yours with 10% off using my code ZONE2SPEAK. Link and details are in the episode notes. Trust me, once you try it, you won't leave for a ride without it. Psych Plus Smart Pump. Smart, simple, and ready for any adventure. Now, let's hear it for the episode. Welcome back to Zone to Speak. Today's guest is a familiar voice on the show, Josh Brandwene, making his third appearance on the podcast. Josh is a lifetime athlete, a coach, a passionate advocate for clean sport, and someone who brings a sharp, thoughtful perspective to every conversation we have. In his first two episodes, we explored performance, mindset, and the psychological side of endurance sports. But today, we are diving into a topic that is as complex as it is controversial: doping in cycling. From the professional ranks to the amateur age groups, we will explore how the culture around performance enhancement has evolved, what pressures drive athletes to cross the line, and why the issue isn't limited to pros chasing podiums. So, Josh, welcome back to Zone to Speak.
Always an honor to be here. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And likewise. So, you have been involved in endurance sports and sports for a long time. You have seen the culture shift over time. What's your sense on how doping in cycling has evolved, both at elite level and the amateur scene?
Well, I think to start, I thought a lot about this. I want to make it clear to all of your listeners, first and foremost, I'm a passionate advocate for clean sport. All sports. Yes. And my expertise is in decades of experience in coaching and my background in exercise physiology. I am neither a scientific expert on the deep dive into performance enhancing drugs, nor would I consider myself an expert historian on the subject as well. It happens to be a subject that's very passionate for me, always has been, and especially so in this modern era. And I'm sure we'll get into a lot of detail around it, but I think one of the drivers for this at the amateur age group level has really been social media. Social media is such a double-edged sword. It brings so many people together. That's how you and I met. Is through social media. So it has such a brilliant upside, but the pressure that ends up influencing everyday human beings and athletes is a massive trap door with social comparison. So lots to talk about, but just want to be clear to your listeners, it's a passionate topic of mine. And that's where the expertise sort of ends.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for setting the scene. I appreciate that. Very, very good insights. And with that, what do you think that, your sense of doping in cycling has evolved? What do you think? When you talk doping in cycling, you think Armstrong still. But I know, for example, on my time in triathlon, amateur level, people were saying, I don't know of anyone. I can't point anyone or what they are doing, but people are saying, oh yeah, of course she was on doping, or of course he's doping. And I was in shock because I'm like, we're doing just for fun. Of course it's competitive, but I'm like, why would I do that? And I know I wouldn't feel good knowing that I won over other people that are not doping. So I wouldn't do that. I just don't understand the mindset. Of course, there's a lot of psychological things, ego and everything, but what is your take?
Well, this is going to be a roundabout way to get to it, but I think you can even start with, at the age group level, the broad topic around cheating in general. And I am always shocked. And there's an amazing website called Marathon Investigation. And it's run by a gentleman, I believe his name is Derek. And it started out very much as a hobby. He is a data analyst by trade. And the stories that he uncovers are quite honestly, they're heartbreaking, because it's amateur age groupers in running, in cycling, and triathlon who are doing everything from banditing races, having bib mules, and which is basically having somebody, not themselves, run the race because they're capable of getting a better time, and then they attach their identity to it. And things like course cutting, stories of triathletes in Ironman and 70.3 hiding in the bushes instead of doing the full 2 laps of the bike course, things of that nature. There was a fascinating, heartbreaking story on his site about a runner who was a member of the New York Road Runners Club, did a half marathon down in Florida, and either podiumed or won it. And somebody discovered the photo of her watch was there, and it didn't show the full. She still had the distance up, and it didn't show the full distance. And so she got called out on it, and then doubled down on the mistake, and went later and then biked the course to prove that this person did the whole 13.1. But even that involved, because there was no longer a closed course, stopping at lights, all of these other things that can be unearthed with data. I have a number of really good friends who are Ironman age groupers, and they share this story of somebody who's apparently nicknamed Fin Man, who tucks a set of swimming fins in his triathlon suit and sticks them on in the water. And again, I don't come to this conversation to present spreadsheets or hardcore proof or anything like that. I come to this conversation to really help bring it to light as to how prevalent it has become in society. And to me, it's, people's emotions around the topic will vary from just sheer, sort of open mouth disbelief to anger to sadness. And mine sort of resides somewhere with maybe a little bit of anger because of the unfairness it is to clean athletes. But a lot of it really evolves around how have we gotten to this place? And I'm just sort of very sad about it. So even before we get into the doping side of it itself, the notion of cheating in order to gain a result is a both sad and fascinating topic.
Yeah. And for me, I know it's all cheating and it's all the same, but I really don't know what's worse, like taking illegal enhancement drugs and fighting for it in a way, not fairly.
Right.
But the ones that cut courses, like I think there was someone else, I think it was the Chicago Marathon that a lady won or podium as well. And they discovered later that she actually took a taxi part of the course. And it's just like, wow, that really floors me. Like how, and how do you live with yourself? Like, I mean, the pros, there's money and sponsorship involved. Exactly. And it's still unfair, not justifiable at all, but okay, this is their career. They're trying to get ahead. It's not okay. But on the amateur level, it's just like, guys, we're doing this for a banana. Like, it's like, that's all you get. It's a free banana, maybe a gel. And why can't you not just, I don't know. It just floors me that people do that. I mean, there are legal stuff and supplements, and you can play with that and see how your body reacts and try to be the best performer you can be. But taking Me, if I
I
take a
think,
caffeine pill because I don't have coffee, I feel like I'm doping because I
right.
get really,
Well,
really
I mean,
hyper.
it's the most widely used legal drug in the world, and I certainly
Yeah,
enjoy my coffee far longer into the afternoon than I possibly should.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I think, and this is just more of a qualitative observation as I thought about this in advance of you and I speaking today. You certainly have its evolution from the early days of professional cycling and stories of just rife with amphetamine use and obviously the
mm,
dangers that go along with
yeah,
it and how prevalent that was in the pro peloton. And then there's the EPO era, and then you've got the Festina incident and everything that sort of culminated with that, and everything around both Lance Armstrong and Floyd Landis and that particular era. And it's, as I sort of observe it retroactively, it got, I believe, a lot better. Certainly, can anyone declare any particular sport fully clean? No, I don't think anybody can declare that, but it certainly felt like there was such an effort made globally for testing protocols and whatnot that we had moved massively in the right direction.
yeah,
And again, this is just observational, but it really feels like the impact of money and social media has made a an uptick in this. I can't speak to the professional level because I'm not in that world. But
yeah,
certainly if you think about it from the amateur level, and so many folks who are looking at social media not just as a community tool, but even for an amateur athlete, well, how many followers do I have? How many sponsorship deals could I possibly get as an amateur athlete? And the temptation as a result of that has grown so much. And the more organized a race is with timing mats and officials, rightfully so, the harder it is, gladly and happily to be. I'm happy about this, that course cutting is more difficult and those sort of things have become more difficult. And again, it's just an amateur hypothesis I'm making, but I think that then, since is some drug testing done at some of those amateur events, but there's only limited resources that any anti-doping association has to put into that, where the temptation is really great. And you're seeing it. There are all sorts of stories now. And obviously, I'm US based, so I'm speaking this from, the stories that I see. There are stories of college runners, university runners who are being tagged for doping. And whether it's EPO, whether it's human growth hormone, whether it's steroids or something else that is new on the horizon and very undetectable, it's not something that I, with an amateur eye, can ever come on a show like yours or come on any platform and prove it. But you can certainly see certain athletes where, if you follow closely enough, you kind of go, are we sure? And it would never be appropriate to make a false accusation. But when you see rapid changes in an athlete's physique, don't get me wrong, there are expert coaches and the training is world class at the NCAA level in all sports, whether you're talking about swimming, whether you're talking about running and track and triathlon. There are coaches doing really good work, and that needs to be celebrated and that needs to be honored. But when you are at that age where you've been doing an endurance sport for 5, 10, 12 years, by the time you get even to late in your career at university, the gains are both marginal And even if they're big, they are almost always incremental. And so when you see a massive change, it begs the question. And it is a fair question to ask in this era of, we have in the United States at the intercollegiate university level, name, image, and likeness deals. So there are athletes getting paid in all university sports. They have the ability to make money off of their name, image, and likeness in social media. And I'm not an opponent of that in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, it creates this other level of temptation among athletes. Well, I have to finish at a certain place in order for me to get my NIL deal. And it's just that's I think social media and NIL have really changed the landscape.
Yeah. So you think that's what's driving, plus obviously, like you said, the pressure to perform, social media culture, ego. And I guess it's both ways. I'm just thinking, like, do you think a lot of it comes from the athlete because they have all this pressure and the ego and they want to perform and they want to get those contracts? Or do you think some coaches are also...
So you see me smirking here.
Yes.
There is no doubt. I mean, there are stories that exist. I posted this the other day, and I intentionally left the name of the university off because that's not my intent, is to call out any specific university or any specific organization. But a coach was sanctioned for that exact thing, for providing illegal substances to their athletes. You've seen the stories of it happening at a high level of professional track and field, where athletes have been pressured and provided that by coaches. You have seen stories of coaches trying to stand in line and provide the urine sample for their athletes. So it is happening. So I think, for instance is, and I'm just pulling this out of the air, like for instance, if this is, so if you think about the NCAA level or any professional coach, they're being paid to have their athletes succeed.
They have a reputation.
A lot of pressure. And I think all of us coaches, whether we like to admit it or not, love to see our athletes succeed. So to say coaching can be fully egoless, I don't think is a reality. It's all about proportion. If your ego is really minimal and under control and you're a real servant leader, then you're not going to be tempted to do that. But if your ego is taking up the space and your self-esteem revolves around the success of your athletes, and you may lose your job. So I think what can ultimately happen in endurance sports, whether it's a professional coach or a university coach who's paid and has a full-time job and they're being paid for results, it is very tempting. And so a cycle kind of happens. And so this is what I can see happening. A coach who maybe lacks a little bit of the foundation of true exercise physiology and periodization and is not really heavily focused on metabolic profiles of the individual athlete and really comes at it from the more is always better kind of thing and keeps pushing their athletes. So they do that. They push their athletes, and without understanding the science behind it, they haven't realized that they've overtrained those athletes. So those athletes start plateauing or actually dipping in performance. And I've seen this over and over again. If you step back and you put your ego aside and you put the athlete's need first, you're going to realize that you as the coach have made a mistake. And none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. I literally just had this conversation with an athlete of mine where I had given him a session that was slightly too ambitious. Was it dangerous? No. Was it catastrophic? No. But it was me. And so I took responsibility for that. because I don't want this athlete to feel bad about themselves. And I said, hey, I sort of misjudged a little of the nuance in this particular workout. That's on me. I've already made the adjustment for next time. And they were like so grateful for that. Thanks. I feel so much better about this. But if you can't put your ego aside and own your own role in it, what I see a lot of these coaches doing is they then double down. Well, this can't be my fault. They must be not working hard enough. And so they start piling on more work. And we all know what happens next. Their performance goes down even more. And so the coach
and motivation, like if it's to work that hard.
Yes, they get desperate. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness, my team is underperforming. My self-esteem is now in the toilet. I might lose my job, whether that's true or not, if it's fear-based. And all of a sudden, maybe they turn to, well, I have to have these athletes succeed. Otherwise, we're not going to qualify for this regional or this national. And all of a sudden, this athlete goes from, let's say it's an athlete with a very ectomorphic build. You know, there are obviously broadly three body types. There's ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph, and a lot of that is driven by someone's genetics. And typically,
can you explain the difference between the two?
Yes, absolutely. So an ectomorph, if you wanted to think about an ectomorph, typically it would be someone who is in the cycling world. You know, the Parry Pancher brothers. Their watts per kilos as climbers they're built for it because they're super light. I'm sure they do some strength training, but they're not going to gain any sort of massive hypertrophy or muscle mass because it's very difficult for them to actually even put on muscle mass.
Got it.
That's like a true ectomorph. On the other end of the spectrum is more of an endomorph, and it does not mean an endomorph can't be both an amazing athlete and even an amazing endurance athlete. They are just genetically different, where they're very prone to being able to put muscle mass on. Their body composition may tend towards something a little bit different on the other end of the spectrum. And then there's the mesomorphs in the middle. They can really pack on muscle. They're never necessarily going to be the greatest climber in the world. Think about Mads Pedersen or Jonathan Milan, that sort of build, or Lorena Wiebes. They are going to be massive power machines, and they can easily put on muscle mass. And so circling back to the ectomorph, if you see an ectomorph suddenly within a 2 or 3 month period go from what is their typical build, yes, they're capable of changing their body composition and adding some muscle. But if that ectomorph goes from, let's say, May, and they are what they typically look like, they've done a little bit of strength training, they've been, doing their sport, whether it's swimming, running, or triathlon for a long period of time, and boom, they show up in September and they're jacked, their face is chiseled. I can't sit here and point the finger at anyone and provide proof, but you have to be a level-headed skeptic with that. Then, if you see them compete and you've watched them for any number of years, one of the other things that I think is potential telltale is and this is a semi-topic jump, but really not. I have really started to focus in on breathing rates, tidal volumes, and minute ventilation when it comes to proper training zones as not only an added piece of the puzzle along with heart rate and watts, but to be honest, a driving feature of that. So think about it when an athlete, we'll go back to climbing because that's what I coach and that's what I guide. If you are at that final 500 meters and you are going really deep, your breathing rate is through the roof. And so if you think about it, if someone's like in zone 1 in a coffee ride, you're at that talking pace, it's easy to chat. if you wanted to close your mouth and just nose breathe, which by the way is more efficient than mouth breathing, you can do that. And your body can maintain that. You're consuming a lot of oxygen and you're utilizing a lot of oxygen, and you're at an effort level that is, you can easily do that. If you're going hard and your body's going to get to a certain point where if you even try to continue to nose breathe, it ain't happening. I won't get into the charts and graphs of why that happens, but everybody knows what that feeling is like. You are literally in some ways gasping for air and you are all out. So let's circle back to this ectomorph that's now packed on all this muscle. And let's say it's somebody who's been a really good runner. It's not just a matter of saying, okay, well, they're a really good runner and their times are getting a little better. Everyone can improve their times. That's fine. But if their times have both gotten better, and let's say it's a sprint triathlon, which at the elite level, sprint triathlon is not an endurance event. It is a full gas effort, especially in draft legal, because you have to swim all out to get in the best bike pack, to stay in the best bike pack. And so you've now gone full gas on the swim, you've gone full gas on the bike, and now it's 5K, everything you got. And it doesn't mean you're sprinting the first kilometer. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm sorry. By kilometer 4, kilometer 5, if you are literally looking like you're just doing a tempo or even something right around lactate threshold, I have questions about that, because you should be in the hurt locker after an hour at that particular time. And if you're not, again, I can't prove this, but it says you're actually holding back because you don't want to get flagged with improving your time too much. And again, but if it's improved you enough where all of a sudden now you're qualifying for a regional or for a national and your place is going up, the coach is like, and again, I don't know what the motivation is. Maybe it's a coach that, needs their team to qualify in order to keep their job or whatever. Or if it's the athlete, like I want more Instagram. It can be something as that simple, ego driven. I want more followers. I want a sponsorship. I want an NIL deal. If I do a little bit better, but I don't get caught, I'm going to have a chance to do that. Whether that's real and factual or whether that's fantasy, it is driving a lot of what's going on. And it's really sad to see because it's not fair to the athletes who are proud to do this cleanly, whether you're talking about collegiate level, professional level, never mind us age groupers where, you think about some of the things that get flagged on Strava segments and stories of people driving in cars to finish a segment. I mean, that's how significant this has gotten.
I'm just going to jump in here for a quick break from the conversation, because if you have been listening for a while, you know I only share brands that I actually use and love. One of these is Code Age. They make science-backed supplements that really support active lifestyles. I have been taking their creatine gummies for recovery and strength, and the women's multivitamin for energy and immune health, especially during big training weeks. They have got everything from hydration to collagen and endurance blends, all top quality. You can get 10% off with code ZONE2SPEAK at codeage.com, and you will be supporting the podcast while you are at it. All right, back to the episode. Wow, that's insane. It's mind-blowing and very, very good points. And now it's easier than ever to access substances online. Like the biohacking culture has exploded. How do you think this accessibility impacts this doping among non-professionals?
My knowledge here is a little bit limited because I'm one of those people who doesn't dawn on me to do that.
Yeah.
I don't circle in that world. What you're saying
Yeah.
is factually accurate, and it certainly plays a role. And again, this is both the gift of the World Wide Web, where we all have so much more access to information, but we also all have so much more access to being able to make these sort of things happen. And I can't put my mind in the place of somebody that does this. All I can do is speculate, where there's a lot of justification that goes on. Well, everybody else is doing it, so I need to do it in order to compete. Again, whether that's cheating or whether that's performance enhancing drugs and those sorts of things, it's eroded the honorable nature of sports. And, obviously for us, we're specifically talking about cycling in the endurance sports world. To me, there's just so much honor in going full gas, whether you're an amateur or professional, and knowing that you're the engine, you're the one who did that. And being able to, if somebody else is also clean and they beat you on that day, it's that community connection and watching those athletes congratulate each other, because it's that spirit of competition. I got the better of you today, or you got the better of me, or vice versa. And, the hug and the cup of coffee, or the beverage that takes place after that. That's what this should be about. And I just hope we have some sort of, maybe some reset that goes along with this around the why of really all sports. Again, we sort of talked about the pressures that exist at the professional level, and it certainly doesn't justify it. But certainly when we're talking about the amateur level, it truly is. That's what we're in this for. We're in it for the spirit of competition. We're in it for the spirit of fair play. Again, at both the professional and the amateur level, but, you and I can speak to the experience of, the age group Gran Fondo or the age group triathlon and those sorts of things. And that's what makes it special. And, I hope there's a little bit of resetting that goes on with that.
Yeah, I really hope so. I don't know what could be that would give us a reset, but indeed it would be a good thing and a healthy thing. And speaking of health, you were talking about having so much information out there on the internet, but there's also a lot of wrong information, misinformation. And one of the things that also crossed my mind is the health risks of this. I think some people just don't care about the future of tomorrow, not thinking long term. It's just like, I want now.
Right.
But I also think maybe others might think, some amateur riders and athletes might think like, oh, just a small dose, it's not harmful, or just this time so I can podium or win.
Right.
What do you think are some of the physiological and psychological dangers of this mindset?
Again, without getting and making it a deep dive into the specifics of each particular substance, this is well documented, whether it's the dangers of EPO or the dangers of human growth hormone or steroids, the cancer risk. You've heard all of the stories of EPO use and how low an athlete's resting heart rate, especially overnight, can get, to the point where it can cause, if you read the stories, heart failure. And you've heard the stories of athletes who have their bike set up on their trainer in their hotel room, and sort of that low heart rate alarm that has to go, if it goes off, they've got to get on the bike and raise their heart rate. And
wow, I hadn't heard that one.
Yes. I've read some of those stories, and that's scary. And then there's just sort of like you said, well, I'm only going to use a small dose, or I'm just going to do it this time because then I can make this podium, and, then I can get this particular deal, and then I will stop. It's that justification that goes on in the mind to go along side by side with the wrestling that their own brain has to do with the risks that are involved. So part of it, is the continued effort and the education that comes along with, hey, are these risks really worth it? And, I ultimately don't know what the long-term solution is. And it's interesting. I don't know if you've seen, there's apparently a group that has decided to start something called the enhanced games, where they're actually
Yes,
celebrating
everyone, it's, yeah.
the use of, they're basically encouraging people to sign up for the enhanced games and almost celebrate the use of performance enhancing substances. And, I can't get my mind
Yes.
around that, the glorification of taking known health risks. And I don't honestly, our world is such an ever evolving, so fast changing, with new social media platforms and new information being available and new ways to go about certain things.
Yeah.
It can make your head spin, to be honest with you. So, I think part of the solution really revolves around, the pride clean athletes take, and the, just the desire to, maybe see a little bit more testing that can go on. But I don't know if that's logistically feasible. So,
Yeah.
some of it's a shoulder shrug, where I don't know what the answer is. And there are people far brighter than me who will hopefully have some solutions that we can bring to the table, and, bring back that spirit of, originally what the Olympics were created for, is that spirit of amateur competition.
Yeah, I was gonna ask next, about the testing. I also think it's not logistically possible or maybe even
No.
financially feasible to start
Mm-mm.
testing on amateur level. Yeah, it's like amateur events testing is rare, if non-existing.
Right.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know if the anti-doping authorities should extend more oversight to the amateur racing, but then
Right.
I guess races would be more expensive, and I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. I mean, there is, when you think about the notion of making money, whether it's at the professional level or a social media sponsorship or a name, image, and likeness deal, it's the
Yeah,
money that's driving this. You tie it into the social media, that creates the access, but it is the money that driving this. There is no business model for running an anti-doping agency. It is merely a supported expense that goes out the door. And it is certainly a hugely important one, especially at the professional level, from a fairness standpoint, when all of those millions of dollars are at stake. So you're
yeah,
absolutely right. There is very little likelihood that it's going to grow, the testing piece of it, on the amateur level.
yeah,
And, some of it, I don't want to sound consolation prizey and philosophical prizey, but one of the things that, in a broad sense, that I think is really important for all athletes, professional or amateur, is, what's your true why? Why do you do this? What are the reasons you do this? And I think that can be a very beneficial thing. It can be a beneficial thing for two groups of people. If somebody is already sort of sucked into the world of getting rewarded for cheating, let's call it what it is. If you're on a program of
yeah,
illegal substances, you are cheating. You are a cheat. You are sucked into that. I don't know what the answer is to help someone like that get out of it. Do I
yeah,
think an effort should be made? Absolutely. I think the two groups of people that are, it is so important for them to tune into their why. So if you're someone considering it, why do you really do this? Why are you doing this at the intercollegiate level? Why are you doing this at the amateur age group level? What's your intrinsic motivation? Not your extrinsic reward, but your intrinsic motivation. Because I think it's easy in this era of likes and comments and views and all of those other things to get really accidentally sucked into the external. And that can lead to putting more pressure on yourself. It has certainly led to the degree of anxiety and depression you're seeing societally, especially amongst this younger group who are so vastly affected by the negative impact that social media has had. So when you tune into the internal and the intrinsic, and you remind yourself of what's your why, did you go so deep into the hurt locker in an event where you know in your heart of hearts you gave it all? You know in your heart of hearts you did everything that you could on the day. It was the best you could do on the day. And hopefully that leads to like a massive PR for yourself and all those other things that can make you feel really celebratory about the effort you gave, along with, let's say, who did you do this with? Who did you sign up to the event with? It's one of the reasons we do what we do in the mountains with our guided cycling trips. Is it's not about who gets to the top first. It's not about those things. It's about the shared experience. Our Tour de France week for this coming summer 2026, it's sold out already. And we've got a number of athletes who are coming back for their second time.
Amazing.
And I'm just so honored that they're doing that. But I know what's on their mind. They can't wait to do it again. And, maybe heaven forbid the weather conditions will be so different. It doesn't give them an opportunity, unfortunately, to PR or PB. But I certainly hope it does, because it's such a joyful moment for me as a coach to see them go deeper and learn from the first time around. We got to start getting back to that at the amateur level as coaches. What makes your heart sing? Why do you do this? And, for those folks who are coming back to our Tour de France week and the group that we already have signed up for our Women's Week, we still have 4 or 5 spots that are still open. And, I know those are going to fill. So I certainly hope people get on that and join our group. It's about the stories you share at dinner that night, over a coffee or over a beer, or over a glass of wine. Those are the things you're going to remember. You're not going to remember the exact time. You're not going to remember the exact place or those sorts of things. And yeah, you can go back and look at those things. I get that. But if 2 riders are going to, let's use Majorca 312 as an example, it's going to be the stories they tell. Remember that rain spell we got? Remember when we almost bonked and we just got to it in time and we got food in our system and we made it across the line? Those are the things. It's those badge of honor type things that an athlete is going to remember. And that's why the combination of intrinsic motivation to go along with who's your tribe, who's your community that's supporting you in this, we got to get back to that.
Yeah. Absolutely. You describe it so well. I couldn't have said better. And I think it's a lot of what I was going to ask next, which is for athletes who choose to compete clean, what would be your advice on staying focused and keeping the joy in the sport?
I think it's a matter of we want the mean between extremes. I don't think it's healthy for an amateur age group or a university athlete to bury their head in the sand and take the ostrich approach where I'm going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt and I know everybody's clean and, I'm going to race, because I think that is a recipe potentially for some frustration. It's going on. That's the reality of it. Acknowledge that. But on the opposite extreme, I don't think it's healthy for an age grouper or a university athlete to be looking for shadows all the time, or even most of the time, or even some of the time, or time at all, because that's not something an individual athlete can control. You have no control over anybody you race with ever. And this is no exception, where it's draining your own energy and it's draining your own experience to be spending your mental time and energy on that. So the first step is acknowledging I may not be on a level playing field in this. And then once you acknowledge that, you're at that really important fork in the road. Do you take the road that I hope nobody takes, which is the woe is me, I can't compete? Heck with that.
Yeah.
Why don't we
Yeah.
wear our cleanliness, our clean competition as a badge of honor and see just how well we can do while acknowledging that it may not be a level playing field, and wear that clean status, because you know in your heart of hearts, if you're clean, you know it. You do.
Yeah.
There's just no getting around it. You know it, and just go for it. Go as deep into the hurt locker as you can and be proud of your own effort. That way, when it's done, you can just sort of be satisfied with your own individual performance. And almost, if you are suspecting of somebody, one, you have no proof, so it's not worth your energy. And two, even if let's say you're even pretty sure, look at that person with, I don't know if full compassion is the right term, but you certainly don't want to look at them with hatred, because it's not serving you or them very well
Yeah.
from a humanity standpoint. Just feel maybe a little bit sad for them that on some level they know it's empty.
Yeah.
Maybe not consciously. Maybe they're good about lying to themselves, but they know.
They know.
And you raced clean. Because again, like you said, we're not going to ever have a foolproof testing system. We're not going to stop Fin Man from stuffing fins in his or her triathlon suit. There's going to be cheats who unfortunately get away with it. And so that's where the inner drivenness and the inner joy and the shared experience, whether it's your teammates or who your running club, your triathlon club, your cycling club, when you go and you're all wearing the same uniform, that's at the end of the day what this is about.
Yeah. Yeah. Very wise words. I think it's very, very helpful. Name the feeling, know that it's happening, but just don't stay there. Do your best as an athlete. And like you said, there's no point on trying to prove anything because you can't, or being angry and with hate that is just so bad for you. And at the end of the day, that person knows that they are really just cheating. They're not really winning for themselves.
Exactly. It's funny you mentioned that. There's an American movie that came out, I can say it now, it's a long time ago now, dating myself here a little bit. It's the movie Rudy, the story about the underdog football player from Notre Dame University. And he's considering after, really just, he's someone who never played. He was it was a practice player basically. And he has a really dark moment, and his really close friend and mentor, not somebody who's on the team, reminds him that, you've hung in with the best athletes in the land for 2 years. In this life, you don't have nothing to prove to no one except yourself.
Yeah.
And it's an important reminder, again, whether it's an age group race. For me, I have, on my own individual time when I'm in France this summer, guiding, I get an afternoon off here or there, a day off. I already have targets on certain climbs that I want to beat. It's something that I just want to prove to myself, not to anybody else. I don't have anything to prove to anybody else. I just want to be the best that I can be. And so again, it's a great quote. And if an athlete can go into a race and go back to that internal mindset as opposed to the external mindset, I don't have anything to prove to anybody else but myself. I think it's a really helpful thing.
Yeah, 100%. And anyone listening, Josh's information it's on the episode notes. His camps are amazing. His coaching is amazing. You can see this guy is so knowledgeable, can't have enough of him. So look him up if you're looking for a coach or if you want to improve your climbing. I wish I could join one of the camps. Like, it's on my bucket list.
Usually it's when crossed for you.
It's when my daughter is with me during summers, but I think
first
next
always.
summer.
Yeah, family first always. And by the way, we've got we've created a partnership with an amazing accommodation in the best
Ooh.
possible location for our guided trips. It's in Borders-Luchon. It is near all of the must-do climbs in the Pyrenees. The overall group is gomilobi.com, and it is a part des Cols. Their accommodation is amazing, and it's got a beautiful lounge bar in the main level of the facility. It is super short warm up to the Col d'Aspin, super short warm up to the Périssord, the Col d'Azay, to the Col de Portet, the Pla d'Atay. We could not be in a better location for what we're doing this summer and what we'll be doing in all of the summers to come. And so our hotelier, Martin Jones, is just a wonderful, wonderful human being, and could not be more excited about the partnership with him and his amazing, lovely wife, Pippa. So counting the days and weeks till we're back on the ground in the Pyrenees. It's going to be very exciting.
And for me, and I'm sure for a lot of listeners, it's the best feeling when you are just exhausted after doing, an epic climb, and just go to this amazing, comfortable accommodation and just relax and have amazing food. So yeah, your camps sound like, well, they are really, really incredible, because not only you have bucket list climbs, people get your coaching, and then you have amazing, food and beverage and accommodation. I mean, what else?
Exactly. And the community experience. And through our partnership with Martin and Gomilobi, we've managed to, because of his location, we've managed to include as a part of the package a spa trip to this amazing outdoor
spa. God.
You're looking at the mountains while you're in the just amazing healing waters. So
nice.
Honestly, I wish I could go back right now, but it'll be certainly spring, summertime.
I want to go.
It'll be here soon enough.
Josh, it's always such a pleasure having you on the show. Every time I talk to you, I come away with a deeper appreciation, not just for the sport, but for the values that make it so meaningful. Thanks for bringing such a clarity and honesty to a tough topic, and for reminding us that true endurance is about integrity, resilience, and self-respect.
Certainly is. Always a pleasure to be here, and I will, whatever topic comes up that's appropriate for you and I to chat about next, I will look forward to the next time. It's always a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You got it.
And that's all for today's episode. I want to thank the listeners for tuning in. Your support means everything. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends.